I'm going to put up just so that we can frame the discussion. Reason I want to do that is because we are all tourism experts here, and we need to come down to rural tourism. We need to switch our mind around to rural tourism. So, what are the issues? Rural tourism has become increasingly popular with people seeking out unique experiences in large cities, and especially post-COVID. Everybody wants to go into the village. Everybody wants social distancing. Everybody wants pure air, organic living, clean living, and all of that. So, rural tourism is catching on. However, tourism development can have negative impacts on the environment and the local communities. Sustainable rural tourism, that's what we're going to be discussing, is the only way forward to balance the economic benefits along with environmental and social empowerment. Now, what are the issues we will consider? These are the 3-4 questions we will look at. How can we promote sustainable tourism practices in rural areas? The importance of preserving rural environments and cultures along with development, and the role of community involvement and responsible practices. So these are broadly the areas that the 4 panelists will cover for us to discuss. Now, I'll come to the introduction of the panelists a little later, but I want to now frame the discussion. Just to give you a bit of background about myself. I used to run a resort called Our Native Village. It was a 100% eco resort in Bangalore, outside Bangalore city. When I was never a tourism person. I got into tourism and I built this resort because I wanted to build a model for sustainable living. And I built that model successfully. 17 years ago, I wrote a book, and that work is done. Now, I have moved to what is known as Rasba Farm, which is a farm that I run, which is where I live. So I was just telling my panelists here, I grow culinary herbs, and I sun dry them, I bottle them, I sell them. So I'm a full-time farmer now. My vision in my farming is to build a sustainable model for integrated agriculture. When we say integrated agriculture, what do we mean? I mean value-added farming along with a tourism component onto it. Yes, the first priority is farming. Second priority is tourism. So that's what I want to frame now. I want to frame the validity of the conventional approach to tourism versus the approach for rural tourism. What do I mean by that? Normally we say in rural tourism, this is the challenge. Infrastructure. Rural areas often lack the necessary infrastructure for tourism, such as proper roads and connectivity. What's the farmer's voice? Because we have to start with the farmer. You are going into the rural community, and you are going to spaces. When I say farmer, I'm using the word little loosely. I mean the entire rural community represented by the farmer. That's what I mean, yeah? But the farmer is saying, do we want too many people? We are not sure whether we want too many people. If the roads are bad, it will ensure that only the people who are very interested will visit our farms. Farmers want travelers who can appreciate their way of life. They don't want the mass tourism, right? So, what am I saying here? First, we have to think of the community, then we will think of tourism. That has to be the approach, but because I'm repeating this because we are in a sustainable tourism conference. All of us are wearing the tourism hats. And we don't want a situation where you have a tour operator bringing this huge bus and saying the roads are too narrow. How do I bring my tourists? We don't want buses for rural tourism, right? So I'm framing that particular issue. Second, rural areas may have limited resources such as funds, human resources, technology, and skills, which can limit their ability to develop and promote rural tourism. Do we want rural tourism to develop into a big mass tourism sector? If you ask the village communities and the farmers, they will say no. Our priority is our community, our village, our farm, then is the mass tourism that regular tourism speaks about. Then, there is a need to balance the need for economic growth through tourism with preserving local culture and traditions. This we're talking about local communities. Nobody preserves local traditions better than the local communities. Rural tourism is best for this kind of activity. When we talk of, people who went through the training a couple of days ago, pillar 3, which is culture aspects of tourism. Nobody can preserve that and balance it better than rural tourism. Next, rural tourism faces competition from mainland tourism, which often attracts larger numbers and can offer more developed infrastructure and amenities. Villages don't care about tourism. Villages don't care about this mass tourism, right? Of course, they want that income. But there is no question of competing with regular tourism, which is why when people ask about rural tourism and the GSTC criteria, we say that the criteria we have now is as applicable as to rural tourism as it is applicable to mainland tourism. So, to discuss all these issues a little further, now that you have the framework, think about the village and the community and the farmers first, and then think of tourism next. I have 4 power-packed panelists here. We have Pelin from the from the UNDP. We have Selda from Anadolu Efes. I got to pronounce it right? Anadolu Efes. We have Frederica from 84, and we have Anna from Destination Yarvaso. Yarvso. I pronounced that right also. So I'm going to hand over the floor to the panelists. What about you first? Go ahead, Pelin. Yeah, you need the clicker. And point to that guy there.
Yeah. To where?
To that corner. That's where the control is.
Okay.
Isu?
Yeah.
Yeah, you got it.
Okay. Hello, everyone. It's very honorable moment for us. So I represent UNDP, United Nations Development Program. And after Rem's introduction, actually I will be talking about the boring perspective, because I will be talking about the development challenges in general that we are facing. And the hat I am wearing as the portfolio manager for inclusive sustainable growth, I will be giving our perspective on how we approach to rural tourism. Unfortunately, we are having very difficult times. We have poly crisis in terms of development. We had COVID, we have the post-COVID financial crisis at the moment. We have conflicts in the region and different parts of the world. We have earthquakes, unfortunately, we have natural disasters, and we have naturally climate change as one of the key challenges. And as time goes by, we are not talking about all these challenges as separate issues. Actually, they are all interconnected, and we need to come all together to achieve sustainable development goals that UN has set for 2030. It is the same time that SDGs are being criticized a lot because of the challenges that we are facing at the moment. But they are still the most comprehensible framework for development agenda. And unfortunately, we are falling behind. And as UNDP, we announce human development reports globally each year. And the last 2 development reports that focuses on the access to services, access to health, access to education, apart from the GDP growth. Human Development Index is falling behind, and we are now at 2023. Unfortunately, we are at now 2016 levels because of all those development challenges that I summarized at the beginning. So it is the time that we act all together, and we need to put all our resources interconnectedly to achieve SDGs and to commit ourselves to sustainability principles. And we will be deep dive for the perspective for UNDP Türkiye on rural development. And we can say that we take rural development as a development initiative. And we frame it in a form of community-based development perspective, and we all try to respect the current development challenges, but also the perspectives that we have at the moment, like the importance of resilience, importance of local values, cultural heritage, so on and so forth. So when you consider SDGs, all of them are always interconnected. So this is the general framework. And although there are leakages and stepping back and forth, we need to continue to our commitment to the only world that we are living in. So if we don't do it now, when? And if we all practitioners of tourism or development practitioners, if we will not take action, and then who will? So, of course, as Ram summarized at the very beginning, and we had a panelist from WWF, and we have Yasemin Hanım from Global Environment Facility in the morning session that pointing out the SDG framework and also the resilience for the climate change. We can talk about more on the regenerative tourism approach. So rural development and rural tourism approach is very close frameworks. And we need to focus on the environmental protection side, the social cultural preservation, economic diversification of sustainability, and innovation and learning opportunities, as pointed out in the previous sessions. UNDP Turkey has been working with our local partners, and both local partners, private sector partners, government partners, and have been implementing several initiatives in tourism. And Selda will be giving very good examples after me, but I will try to only focus on the overall approach, that we take it as a development tool, local development tool, local community-based tourism will need to have this overall framework that focuses on the specificity of the region that we are working and that we are living. So we don't trade one another, and we preserve the values of the local community while we are investing their capacities to have sustainable resources for both of the community members, leaving no one behind. Of course, there are challenges, but these challenges are not always need to have a solution because we don't want to frame it as a way to grow very fast, but grow smarter. Again, I will refer the first session that took in the morning. So these potential solutions, of course, will be taken into account by the policymakers, but also the tourism professional perspective and the private sector approach. But as the end users of tourism and local tourism, rural tourism, we all have the responsibility to respect the local resources and cultural heritage. So we have been investing in this area for quite a lot of time, and you will be hearing more in Future is in Tourism initiative. So we are very proud to have collaborated one of our private sector partners in Turkey. So it's not easy to continue these type of initiatives in the head of, under the head of UNDP because usually projects come and go. But when you find the niche and when you find the real need in the field, these initiatives and partnerships are growing and getting better as we have in futurism tourism projects. So we both work in the field, but we also try to invest in policy and legislation development side, hand in hand with our government partners, academia as well. And another example is a recent initiative that was again that we carried out and piloted in Küçükköy, Ayvalık in the Aegean region of Turkey. And this was aligned with the government priorities as the overall GSTC principles are being met with the government. And we have implementation experience, hopefully to be replicated in the coming years. And my final slide, is a very spotlight of Anadolu Efes partnership. This partnership is very unique to UNDP Turkey, and not in every country UNDP invests in rural tourism, but this initiative brings both governmental perspective, but local perspective and our tourism approach hand in hand to create a best practice. So we have been implementing it for very long years, and you will be hearing more in specific cases from Selda now. So, as I said before, it's a critical time for development practitioner for me and my colleagues, but it is a critical time for all of us. And sustainability issues are affecting all industries, and tourism sector is not apart from it. And investing in rural tourism, investing in sustainable development will bring us a better future, hopefully. Thank you.
It's interesting that you say that if the Human Development Index has fallen to 2016 levels,
unfortunately,
and you're
yes.
also going to look at the tourism industry to help prop that up, right? If tourism
Indeed.
can help revive some of the development, you know what that means? That's putting really the responsibility on the tourism industry to help with something as critical as the Human Development Index. The tourism normally doesn't take itself so seriously, but I'm glad you're trying to put that sort of responsibility onto us. So we'll listen to Selda now and how she's translating some of what you all have to say. Selda?
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for having us here. Before talking about the Futures in Tourism project, let me give you a couple of words about Anadolu Efes. We are a Turkish brewer company established back in 1969. Today we are the world's 9th and Europe's 5th largest beer company. What does success mean for Anadolu Efes? It's not only about figures, it's not only about financial results. Success means also putting less pressure on the environment and also creating more social impact in the communities you are working in. In that sense, Anadolu Efes is has 5 focus areas in terms of social impact, and one of them is sustainable tourism. Sustainable tourism is in an increasing trend. When you look at research, according to a study conducted by Deloitte, 69% of participants are actively seeking for sustainable tourism options. 59% choose a form of sustainable tourism in recent years, whereas 75% desire to choose sustainable tourism options in the future. And then again, you have 59% already pay to offset their carbon emissions or are willing to consider such product if the price is right. The same research also suggests that a decline in leisure travel has impacted sea vacations, while the decline in business travels, on the other hand, has reduced visits to cities. People basically, as also Ram said at the very beginning, they want to avoid crowded places, they want to be in nature, and they shift to rural tourism. We see a shift in rural tourism. As Anadolu Efes, we are working on rural tourism for the past 16 years in partnership with UNDP Türkiye and the Ministry of Culture and Tourism. We are actually leveraging sustainable tourism models to contribute to local development and especially to empower women in rural areas of the country, while also preserving, as Pelin has said, the cultural and natural resources of our country, while also sometimes discovering the hidden gems. That's also an important part for us. Our aim is to take tourism beyond the sea, sun, and the beach approach, which is only limited to a certain period of time, to a couple of months. And as part of this program, we provide funds, trainings, mentorship, as well as communication support to the projects, and we help them grow, basically. So far, we have supported 19 projects. Oops, let me move to that. Okay. Changed a bit, okay. So far, we have supported 19 projects. We have cooperated with over 600 NGOs, with over 20 universities, and we have touched the lives of over 200,000 people, especially in rural areas. Reverse migration, bringing internet infrastructure to villages, let's say, designation of certain landscapes as conservation areas by the government, and also extending the duration of stay of visitors are just some of the positive outcomes of the project. We see the employment of women especially a critical part of the project because, as you all can imagine, women are agents of change, not only in families, but also in communities and also in the countries. According to OECD, women's economic participation, their ownership and control of productive assets speeds up development, helps overcome poverty, reduces inequality. Investing in women also produces a multiplier effect as women reinvest large portions of their income again back to their families and to the communities. And thanks to the Future in Tourism project, so far we have ensured we have provided sustainable job opportunities to over 500 women in rural areas. Okay. Developing or implementing sustainable tourism is not always very easy, as you can imagine. As Pelin has explained and as Ram has explained at the very beginning. Now, let me share some examples with you. What were the challenges we have faced and what sort of solutions we have found to implement these projects. Well, 8 years ago, we have supported a project in a small village called Kuyucuk. The main source of income in that village was livestock farming and agriculture. Villagers were growing lavender for over 40 years and selling them basically to medical or cosmetic companies mainly. 90% of Turkey's lavender production came from this very small village, Sparta, which is located in a lake region. But the villagers never thought that lavender fields could become a point of attraction for tourists. And there was little belief that lavender could actually add value to the local communities. To overcome that belief and break the resistance in the village, among the villagers actually, we have organized a field trip to France. And when they got there, they realized that lavender was just not a plant. They saw, for example, that they could make ice cream out of lavender. Or they saw that people were visiting the lavender fields to take stunning Instagram photos. This was very motivating for them, and upon their return from Marseille, things started to change in Cuyahoga. After receiving several trainings on several subjects and developing their skills actually, some of the women opened small coffee shops, other guest houses to provide an off-track experience to travelers. They started to produce lavender soaps. They created their own brand and started selling lavender bouquets to supermarkets to all around Turkey. Cuyahoga was receiving only 10,000 visitors per year before the project. And right before the pandemic, they reached 1 million visitors per year. And that had a great positive impact on local development and on the livelihood of all the people. Another example, let me take you to Mardin, which is a city in the southeastern Anatolian region and very famous actually for its old stone houses. Mardin was one of the places that was included into the Future is in Tourism program. Here we have actually supported a foundation called KEDEV, which is mainly working for the empowerment for women. As in many places of the world, female workplace participation, especially in rural areas of the country, is a development area for Turkey as well. And to include women in economic life in Mardin, KEDEV saw potential in that area of tourism and wanted to open small guest houses. Together with KEDEV, we had to confront some, let's say, and overcome some cultural and social norms that were holding back women actually from participating to the economic life. We needed to understand and change the mindset of men. For example, men didn't want their wives to work at workplaces with other men. And they also said women have care and household responsibilities. So to overcome these barriers, a program was developed targeting men to shift their mindset. We did organize awareness building workshops and tried to understand what the problem was and try to encourage actually men to leave the woman and give them some freedom, let's say. And after these awareness building workshops, we have decided to open guest houses who were only operated by women. So, and meanwhile, we opened childcare centers close to the guest house and find a solution for these women as well in that sense. So the first woman-operated guest house became a success story actually and received many special awards. Once women started generating income, they became self-confident, of course, and were able to raise their voices. The guest house set a local model and encouraged other women to establish small businesses, such as small shops, let's say, in the area of tourism. My last example is from Ovacık. Ovacık is the small forest village only 40 minutes away from Istanbul. As part of the project here, an old village school was restored. It was actually transformed to an experience center allocated to the Ovacık Women Seed Association. Here, they were planning to organize culinary workshops and serve actually homemade food to their guests. However, they were reluctant if they could attract guests from Istanbul to Ovacık. So we have included and integrated a very well-known and famous chef to that program, a woman called Refika Birgül. She is famous. She's doing TV programs, etc. And Refika, she was working hand in hand with all these women, and the women they got self-confidence, and today the One Day in Ovacık project is gaining international appreciation as well. It has recently been included in a book written by a professor from Canada as one of the best demonstrated practices in ecotourism. And we have many more projects like these, empowering women and contributing to local development. But I will stop here. And I will just say that we as Anadolu Efes, we will continue to support sustainable tourism in the future as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Selda. I think here you've seen a massive scale in which a company like that can take 200,000 people, million visitors, and apply them in a rural setting, which is an interesting model in itself. Now let's listen to you, Frederica, on what 84 has been doing, and she's going to give us some nice examples of much smaller, sweeter kind of projects. So, all yours. Take it away.
Good evening, good afternoon, buon pomeriggio. It's a pleasure to be here attending the GSTC conference together with my colleagues Diego Gallo and Alessia Forentino. I'm project officer at 84, so we are a spin-off of the University of Padova, and recently we also gained the B Corp certification. I am no CEO, I don't have a PhD, but I'm lucky enough to work together with local partners that strive every day to implement sustainability practices in their territories. So that's why we wanted to lead you in this journey across some Italian destinations to understand some of the practices. I've already seen many connections also with the Turkey case, but of course each country has its peculiarities. But before that, I would like to give you some background of what is rurality in Italy. So in the right side of the slide, you can find a representation of the highlighted areas in red and orange that represent the urban and peri-urban areas. And a big portion of the peninsula is actually in green. So those are the rural areas. In those areas, there are communities that strive every day to fight against some of the problems that you can see listed there. And the first one is a declining and aging population. This means also less workforce to manage the land, both in terms of grazing land and forests. And this leads also to a higher exposure to climate crisis effects. For example, with the spread of wildfires, and transportation mobilities issues contribute to that challenge. Finally, the detachment from the urban area also brings some problems in terms of innovation and digital infrastructure. We think that tourism can actually provide some solutions to address those problems. But what is the key so that tourism can serve the local environment and communities while minimizing the negative effects? So let's start this journey together across 5 destinations in Italy. And we will start from Trentino. Here on the right, you can see a cow, one of the ambassadors of the Adopt a Cow project. And next to her, there's Stefano, which is here with us, and maybe you had the chance to meet him. he is the director of the Valsugana Tourism Board. And in this territory, there was a huge decrease in alpine huts. So given that they were bringing a lot of value to the territory, both in economic, environmental, and also heritage terms, the Valsugana Tourism Board decided to support alpine huts. And so they started a crowdfunding project, which is also now a gastronomic experience. In fact, guests can access this platform, adopt a cow, and then go to the Alpine Hut and receive some of the dairy products that the Alpine Hut is producing. And of course, this is really useful for the territory to maintain also the landscape management. Then we are moving to the remote northeast of Italy in Tarvisiano. Here we are the borders with Austria and Slovenia. Here there's a 24,000 hectare forest that is really carefully managed by the forestry corps of Italy. And this sustainable management has contributed to maintain the cultural ecosystem value that the forests bring to residents and also guests. So here you can see Claudia, one of our partners, and she is working to foster this value and developing forest bathing experiences together with local guides. So here there's a really big synergy between forestry management and tourism, because if a forest is well managed, then there will be more benefits in terms of health and well-being of residents and also of the guests that come to the destination. We move now a little bit west to Alta Badia, which is one of the last territories speaking the Ladin language. And here in 2018, the Vaya storm really hit the territory. You can see one of the devastated area. And so Max from the Alta Badia Tourism Association decided to start a project to restore the area. And now guests, residents, and operators can contribute to restore the area, also with an offsetting program. And you can see that they also got their hands dirty and actually planted their tree. But it is not all, because there is also a food forest experience in the area. In fact, guests can go there, experience and know more about the history of the area, what happened there, but also know the value of the herbs that spontaneously grow there and that are edible, and so they can be used in their local cuisine. We go back to Trentino with Alpe Cimbra, which is home to the Cimbrian people. And they really wanted to tackle the problem of mobility. So the director that you can see here, Daniela, she decided to join the network of Alpine Pearls, which provides guidelines for sustainable mobility in alpine areas. These lead to many positive impacts in the destination because, for example, public transport at local level is now free to guests that stay there for at least an overnight stay. And also there are a lot more of ski buses, shuttles that contribute to reduce the traffic during the high season. And in addition, also a lot of charging stations for e-bikes were installed. Now we go southern to Tuscany in Siena. And here there was a huge problem of connection between the city and the countryside that is really well preserved, but there was a detachment. And so a project for slow tourism was developed. And the first part of the project was to analyze and improve the quality of the paths that were there, and also to work together with the local operators to provide a common standard of services for slow tourism. And you can see Paolo, which is the manager of the program. So going back to the question, what is the key? we think that destination stewardship is the key when the destination really helps the local operators to in the driving of the sustainability goals. But to make that concept clearer, we use the image of a tree. We, as 84, started as a forestry spin-off, so of course we like trees. And you can see that the destination has his roots in the local system. The local system is based on the natural and cultural heritage, but also in the human, cultural, and social capital. And in this capital, also farmers are involved. So everything contributes to the development of the destination. And from those roots, our trunk starts, and that is the tourism organization. And the more solid, the bigger the trunk is, the more resilient it is to external threats. For example, climate crisis, economic crisis, and social crisis. Then from the trunk, many branches develop, connecting the destination to the tourism operators, who, as leaves, are able to synthesize the value and provide products both to guests that arrive to the destination and also to residents. And at the same time, they are able to nourish the local system. So our journey together ends here, or starts here, let's see. And I really thank you for your attention, and I'm happy to answer the question in the later part of the panel. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I guess everything about Italy is all about the cuisine. I think Vanavatu is taking, Italy as an example for the way the Italian cuisine is developed, and the slow tourism aspect of it. You're in rural, you're in rural Italy. Nothing happens quickly, like in any rural community anywhere, right?
Sure.
So from there we will move to Sweden.
We moved to Sweden.
Yes, and we move to Sweden and we listen to Anna's case.
So, thank you for having me. I would like to please ask you all to stand up. Stretch your legs. Just shake. And then you can sit again, so you don't fall asleep while I'm doing this presentation. And you should be lucky, because we actually talked about making you do squats, so you get the light version. So my name is actually Anna-Lena, but that is so hard to pronounce, so let's stick with Anna in this. I come from a small all-year-round destination in the middle of Sweden. Home is where the heart is. In 2021, we became the first destination in Sweden to achieve silver certification on Earthcheck destination standard, which meet also the sustainable criteria for destinations for the GSTC. You see, Sweden is a long country. You will be coming there next year, right? I'm also fortunate to be a member of the Swedish Nature and Ecotourism Association. I'm in the board, an organization that works to improve nature-based tourism and to promote sustainability in the industry. The association also owns the Nature Best labeling system. When the system first was launched in 2002, it was one of the first world's only labeling system for eco-friendly businesses. The criteria and methods used in Nature's Best were even used as references in creating the GSTC criteria. And now the Nature's Best is almost just an inch of becoming recognized by the GSTC in its proper way. So, one of the unique conditions and opportunity that Swedish countryside offers is the right of public access. This right allows everyone to roam free, explore the beauty of our country, as long as visitors do not disturb or do not destroy. They are welcome to enjoy nature as much as they want. The right of public access allows people to enjoy most private lands and public lands in Sweden. And that includes picking berries, mushrooms, hiking and biking, as long as they do so responsibly and with consideration for other people's property and the environment. When it comes to tourism based on the countryside, they often focus on nature experience. By preserving forest and lands, businesses can find new and non-traditional way to make businesses opportunities, but also contributing to biodiversity. This not only benefits the tourism industry, but also has the local community and the environment. The lesson we have learned is always to consider the identity of the place where you operate, whether you're as a company or as a destination. It's important to understand what matters to this place, what drives people to act, and what builds pride. Identify what makes things happen in this location, what values drives people to act in this just context. We can share experience, stories, and knowledge through the use of storytelling. Wisdom about the place, its history, events, culture, and the people. By weaving all those things together, we can offer unique, personalized experience that touches people's life and bring them together by spreading knowledge and acceptance. We have also been working a lot during the work with the certification progress. We identify the difference between objectives and means. Our objective is a vibrant countryside, a place where I can live, my children can grow up, they can go to school, my parents can grow old, a place where we all can have a good quality of life. Our means to achieve this is through a good, sustainable tourism industry, which provides, of course, expanded community service, offers that products and activities that promote an active lifestyle and public health. And at the same time, as you all may know, it generates tax revenues and employment opportunities. Finally, and perhaps one of the key issues, is that a thriving sustainable tourism industry also contribute with attractiveness of the area, which can lead to an increase of new residents, which is crucial for development and growth of rural communities. I would also like to highlight the importance of collaboration, both between businesses but also across sectors, including the trade, public sector, but also, and perhaps most importantly, the civil society. Our experience has shown that when we work together and engage in constructive dialogue, we are more likely to achieve our goals, and more creative initiatives comes when 1 and 1 becomes 3. By joining forces and encouraging participations from all stakeholders, we can create a stronger and more sustainable future for our communities. This is also how we have organized Järvsö's Green Team, the steering committee that works on sustainability issue and is linked to the certification progress. We have participants from all 3 sectors, and that is considered as a best practice because it provides a deeper sense of commitment and involvement in the work. Time's running up. So, using sustainability certification and labeling system provides a structured approach in addressing sustainability challenges. They guide business as well as destination on improving their sustainability performing and building on their strength. This approach ensures that all sustainability aspects are considered, which benefits the local economy, the environment, and the community, but also the people. The process also offers valuable insights and knowledge, helping business to stay competitive and contribute to the growth of the entire community. So, development of the rural area often occurs dynamically, and it can be frustrating when the program seems slow, especially like people like us, who those working on development issues on a daily basis and have a clear vision or goal in mind. However, there may be something healthy and sustainable about this slow and steady approach to long-term development. Perhaps this persistence adds to value and should be respected and trusted. It may be the way to build a strong foundation, gain support from others, and create good ambassadors and sustainable hospitality over long term. Do things that feels good in the stomach and in the heart, and being kind to yourself, to others, and to the planet. Thank you. Thank you so much, participants, for letting me have your knowledge and share it with us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Anna. So there you have it. You have like from the macro, which is a large UN agency, down to a large company, and then you have some a cluster of examples, and the destination that Anna just spoke about. So I think now we've had a beautiful discussion on the whole width of it, right? We haven't left out any sector of rural tourism, let's put it that way, either in size or scope. So it's interesting. So I urge you all, if you all have any questions, to put it on Slido so that we can start looking at the questions, and I'm going to start going through some other questions. I think one of the first questions that's been asked here by Cherise, she comes from Vanuatu, and they're very, very interested in looking at, and they came here to listen to our panel because they're going to take away a lot of inputs from us. The question is, how can rural communities protect their areas from negative impacts of tourism, such as housing transition to holiday houses, increased rents, inflations, etc.? In fact, this is something that we've seen happening. Venice is a classic example. In fact, during my training program for my students over here, we spoke about Venice extensively, where you have Venetians moving out because it's far more lucrative to rent their house out to Airbnb on a long-term basis and move out. So like Salvatore Setteri in his book says, what is Venice without the Venetians? Right? So there is that danger here. So I'm going to ask you this question, Pelin.
Okay.
As UNDP is helping, raise the Human Development Index, we want, prosperity in the rural households. Is UNDP looking at this as an issue? Because we have enough examples. Venice is one example I gave. There are multiple examples like that from around the world.
Yeah.
Is UNDP looking at that, and what are the mitigation measures that this doesn't happen?
Actually, UNDP works at the very local level, but collaborates in terms of the local context, and puts all resources together before start doing something new in the initiative. So we don't just land the initiative into the area, but we try to engage the local partners into the process as a participatory development process. So if there is not a will, if there is not a commitment from the local partners, it is really hard to make something in the local areas.
But do you have like a criteria for the local partners to tell them,
sure,
we've got to be careful to ensure that
sure,
the specific example,
sure,
people don't give up the homes and just rent it and move away to Spain or somewhere?
Actually, we, in all the initiatives that we developed, we run a very, detailed environmental and social screening procedure before starting.
Okay.
And it has many different layers of questions. So inclusive approach is one of our main principles. So if we don't respect the local values, if we don't respect the community's voice into the initiative, then we cannot start and just do something just for the sake of doing it. So before starting this, actually, in any kind of initiative that we carry out, we try to listen all the partners, and then we come up with a joint, solution that we can collaborate in the field. Because as UNDP, we cannot do something for the local community. We always collaborate with our partners, and we do every initiative together with different partners.
So I guess one suggestion would be from the audience and from this question is, when you all start talking to the partners, ensure that a Venice doesn't happen anywhere. We don't want that happening. Where the local communities move out because it's far, far more lucrative.
Indeed.
So that's interesting. There's another question here. Where have my questions disappeared? Okay. Has it been prioritized here? Yeah, very impressive work for. This is a question for you, Zelda.
Zelda.
It talks about, did you also measure the side effects of those million tourists? The moment you said million tourists, I knew everybody here was saying, whoa, this is rural tourism. Where's the million tourists? I can see people nodding vigorously, right? Because that seems to be the anathema of rural tourism. But you said that so confidently, so obviously you have your figures right and you have everything else. Now, what are the side effects of these million people going through these beautiful lavender fields? Have you measured that, and what do you have to say about that?
Well, I think we have to come back to Pelin's answer there as well. Um, First of all, it is very important that you work very close with the local authorities as well as with local NGOs to ensure the standards you have. And I think it's important that it doesn't happen from one day to another day. So you start doing something, and over the years, you develop the skills, make sure that you have the certain standards. But of course, there is always a risk that that you, at a certain point, can move to mass tourism, which is always a risk. However, as I said, it is important that you build up, not from one day to another, gain the experience, gain the skills, make room for it, make room for growth, and then move on.
But have you all put any mechanisms in place to measure, the negative effects? For example, we always recommend, in our trainings, we want feedback from the local guests. I mean, from the local residents, on a periodic basis. Because we've had instances of Korea where we had whole villages which put up banners saying, "We don't want any more visitors here. Tourists are not welcome." Which is a very dangerous thing. When that went on to TripAdvisor and everywhere else, it gave a very negative image. That's because people didn't realize, tourists didn't realize, tour operators didn't realize that so many visitors going into that little Jeonbuk village was detrimental. So, are you planning any regular research, feedback from your local people there to be able to monitor what is likely to happen? Do you have any mechanisms in place?
Pelin, would you like to answer that
Yes,
question?
sure.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Sure. So since we are very lucky in this initiative, since our partnership continues. So we try to do this monitoring and evaluation trips and visits, and we keep the connection with our local partners. So not only the end beneficiaries of our initiative, but also the local partners like Governorate, the Tourism Council at the local area, and we try to keep contact, and sometimes we send our monitoring missions and evaluations to have the feedback. So once our support ends, most of the initiatives continue with different government support schemes. So we after our presence is finished in the area, usually the presence of the government or the NGO and the local partnerships continues. So we are able to have the feedback from our end users, but also we have constant communication with the government partners, because we already have our ministry team on board in the initiative to run and carry out these type of evaluations.
Okay, excellent. Fine, we leave it at that. Related to that is the increase in number of tourists. How does it affect the lives of locals? In fact, I'm going to ask the question to the two of you. All your destinations, you would have seen an increase in number of visitors coming there. If you can go first, Frederica, and tell us, how has it affected the lives of the locals? Do they like it? Don't they like it? What is the situation? Can you explain to us?
Yes, so actually we work with destinations that are quite already established, so they have like a stable number of visitors. So now what they did is to shift their mind and go from just marketing to management and destination stewardship. So what they want is to understand how the local population actually feels about tourism, if there's another direction to take according to what they say. And this is why usually when we support destinations, we start always with a consultation of the local community to understand their feelings and if they identify with the sustainable model that is already existing or that is provided. So yes, mixed feelings and depending on the different destination. But of course, it's really important to try to understand and start from there also to know the core values and on top of that develop the tourism strategy and destination. Because if you do something that is against the resident wheels, then sooner or later it will go back to you. And so, as you said in Venice, and you touched my heart because I live 1 hour from Venice.
Venice, yes, yes.
And yeah, it's like the place of my heart, but and
We have a challenge today.
full of
Yeah.
cultural heritage and social heritage that it has been disrupted, and that's because when there was an increased number of residents, there hasn't been a real consultation among the community, and so yes, that.
So fantastic. So what you're saying is your destination stewardship stakeholder consultation process has been robust enough to not allow over tourism to happen, which is great. Let's listen to you from Sweden. What's your experience there?
I think that more tourism coming builds pride. It gains more businesses developing. We have a new school, and we have more products, and that can be also built in a way to be resilient for a higher pressure of people. But we can also see how people react to the leveling of the house prices in the area going up. A small version of the Venetian. And so there are always two sides of the coins, and you have to be there and take care of both questions. So we are creating we are expanding the whole society and the whole destination. So we have to take part in the whole picture, not just the tourism sector.
Okay. So staying with you, Anna, I want you to address this question. What is the role of sustainability certification in rural tourism? If certification is recommended, how to make it financially feasible for micro rural businesses? So we'll come to the second part later. But if you can just tell us your own experience, since you all have got the Earth Check, certification. Did certification add value to your destination in terms of rural tourism?
Yes, it does, because it's given us a tool for how we work with our development. It's gained a lot of knowledge and a network for contributing with other people, but mostly it has offered something common for us to talk about: the trade, the public sector, and the civil society. It has placed us around the same table, talking about our expansion of the destination and how we should do it. So that is the most important thing.
That's interesting, because we've always told ourselves, the moment somebody gets themselves certified, you're able to compare a little village in Sweden to a little village in Slovakia, or if it is in Bogota, it doesn't matter, right? There is a common minimum standard so that you can judge everybody with a common rule. So it's interesting that you say that with the certification, you bring everybody onto that sort of common platform. I want to ask you, Frederica, the second part of the question: if certification is recommended, how is it affordable for smaller places? You talked about many small, destinations. How did they make it affordable to themselves?
So we are actually lucky to be inside the European Union, so that
True.
there's a lot of funds that is going to be delivered for the development of sustainable tourism. So both for accommodations and destinations, we started many European cooperation projects to finance also that cost. So of course, it's really requires a lot of efforts, both financially and in terms of resources for rural destinations that don't have the staff of bigger DMO, of course. But there's always a way, and the public policy is going that direction. So I think it's possible to find ways to financial support those rural destinations and accommodations.
Thank you. That's interesting. So that's the message that needs to go out. Even if you're a small destination, there's funding available. In fact, yesterday, I don't know how many of you attended the inaugural session where we had, the Global Equity, Global Environmental Fund speaking, how there is a lot of funding available. And this is what I was telling one of the participants in the training also from Philippines, when she asked, is there enough funds available to support sustainable tourism? And the answer is yes. It takes a bit of effort. Yeah, it takes a bit of effort to apply for those funds, to realize those funds, to do all the reporting and all that, but the funding is available. So if we have a cluster of rural communities and they need to be certified, definitely it can be through funding and not expecting them to fund it themselves. So I think that's one thing which we can take away from here, saying that funding is available and there must be a cluster funding available for a cluster of small destinations so that they also reach global standards. Let's go to the next, another question which says, should rural destinations focus on building domestic tourism and not international tourism given the carbon footprint? Selda, I'm going to ask you this question. Do you get a lot of your guests from Turkey or do they come from outside Turkey? That itself will give us an indication.
I think that depends on the destination itself.
Okay.
Sometimes it's attractive for Turkish people. For instance, if we talk about the Lavender village, it's like a route that is preferred mainly by Turkish people, I would say. But if you talk about Kars, for instance, which is again in the eastern part of Turkey, it has become, for example, one of the cheese routes. It has been included into the cheese routes. It is among the 18th cheese routes in the world. So I think that one has a potential for international tourists as well. But even if it's international or local tourists, I think it's important to have responsible tourists. And that's the most important part, and that's what we are trying to promote in the Futures in Tourism project as well.
Okay, thank you. Here's one question, and I've heard this question during the training also. In your country, do you receive pushback from urban DMOs to the National Tourism Board promoting rural tourism in their destination marketing? It's happened in a lot of places where the urban tourism organizations get a little upset when you're suddenly dragging everybody from the urban space, into the rural space. So has there been any conflict? I mean, Frederica, if you can answer that. Has there been any conflict between the urban DMOs and they pushing people into the rural place?
I mean, this is, for example, the case of Siena, where there's the urban area and then there's a real developed countryside all around. And what we've seen is that there's actually a synergy between the two. And since many times people actually invade somehow the city in some moments of the year, it's better if they go to the rural areas and benefit also those territories and not just stay there, take the picture, and then go away. I wouldn't see these clash between the two, but more of a synergy in the tourism development. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. I think we're almost running out of time. I'll take one more question. If you can take this question, Pelin.
Okay.
Given the potential impact of tourism development, what human resources are needed to maintain effective stewardship, not needed when there is limited tourism? Do you have a view on this? What kind of human resources are needed to ensure that, because when we talk about proper destination stewardship, we are talking about people who are knowledgeable about sustainability issues, knowledgeable of stakeholder consultations. Not everybody understands, Agenda 21, the United Nations, and how to do stakeholder consultation. So what kind of human resource needs will be there, will come up to push this kind of, rural tourism?
Actually, there are many schemes for capacity building and for human resource development type of things. But what we experience here in Turkey, that people, are leaving rural areas, and we have a very strong urbanization policies, unfortunately. And when a destination is successful with small initiatives like the lavender field, we see that the local people are coming back from urban areas, and they own the initiative from their families. And youngsters, the young population, are more digital literate, and they are benefiting from social media, digital marketing solutions, and we are experiencing those type of things. But we also have support schemes to have short-term capacity building programs, certification programs. But what we also see that if we have a leader in the area, in the rural area, which is influential in the community, then it is it becomes easier
and
to
perhaps
people.
more
Yes.
effective also.
Yes. So if we have this type of leadership in the area, then and they see something, some changes happening, and if they have a will and commitment, and they easily take the decision to come back, for example, after finishing their school, instead of staying in the big city, they come back and take over the business, the small business, to have and build the life in the rural areas. Of course, it's a challenge, but again, it is very interlinked with the overall, education policies, overall, urbanization policies. So we are. I guess we will be seeing more regulatory actions in the long run.
Okay. Yeah, let's hope that's the best thing that can happen,
Hopefully,
right?
yes.
Yeah, people from the place come back and they
Yeah.
run their own
Yeah.
sort of villages. That'll be the best thing.
Yeah.
So I'm going to take one last question, which is what is that? If tourists are not interested in tourism, if the villages are not interested in tourism, do we force that? How do we ensure that tourists get access to that? So let me answer that question on behalf of the panel. First of all, come and do the Destination Stewardship Training Program with GSTC. You'll understand that much easier. But jokes apart, whenever we talk about sustainable development of any destination, the first thing we talk about is stakeholder consultation. Nothing can be done without all the stakeholders in the area being consulted, and it is only if the stakeholders in the area have a consensus that we need to move forward in this way. If it is tourism or whatever it is, should one move forward? Otherwise, it will not be sustainable, because somewhere down the line there will be pushback from the local villages saying, we never wanted tourists here. Why are you coming to our place, right? So to answer that question, it can only happen if all the villagers, if all the relevant stakeholders in the village agree for tourists and for tourism development. If they don't agree, then it'll be very difficult to move forward with any kind of development, because you don't have a consensus with the stakeholders. Yeah. So with that, I think we'll close this, and we've gone beyond our time. I want to thank my panelists very much for all the wisdom you shared with us, and for the audience, thank you for being here, and let's enjoy the rest of the evening. Thank you all.